Well, all right, everybody, welcome to the Foundry Show. My name is Hassani,
I'm Jeff.
and we are talking about all things men today, as we do every single day that we come on the show. But today's conversation, we've been talking about men becoming the men that they were designed to be. And our topic for today is men are the foundation of the home. That's right, men are the foundation of the home. See, when you understand what a home structure is supposed to look like, it's supposed to have a wife, a husband, a mother and father, and the children. But when there's an absentee of the husband, when there is no father, there's a significant voice, there's a significant influence, there's a significant impact that is not able to be experienced, which can have a devastating effect on that spouse and on those children. You know, we hear about widows and orphans. Well, what's the commonality amongst widows and orphans? The absence of a man. And when a man is not in his rightful place, it is devastating. In fact, there was an article in Time magazine many years ago called Dad is Destiny. And it talked about how the destiny of a child is significantly impacted by the presence and the influence of the voice of a father. Jeff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we talked about this. There's just so many things that happen when a man abandons his post. We think that some of the things that society has taught us, which are alternatives, like co-parenting, we think of things like, well, if we're just not compatible, so I step out and I'm going to go do my thing, that she's going to go do hers. Or if there's been some kind of trauma in the relationship that is not like physical violence or something threatening like that, we think it's okay to just walk away. But the truth of the matter is, we should be fighting to become excellent men and stick in the homes, because the outcomes of our children, the destiny of our legacy, is dependent on being in that home. And we're not just talking about, biblical stuff, which is strong enough to stand on in and of itself, but we have scientific, neuroscience, psychological, and other evidence, including the criminal system, which shows that once a father abandons his post in his home, the outcomes of those children are significantly worse.
Well, let's talk about it. What are some of the challenges that children go through when a father is not operating as the foundation of that household?
Academic performance. Children from fatherless homes and tend to have poor scores in reading, math, and cognitive skill tests, and lower overall academic performance. Okay, this is from McNeil in 2014 study. Emotional behavioral problems. Children without fathers in the home are more likely to be depressed, anxious, exhibit hyperactivity, have conduct disorders, use drugs, alcohol, or display other behavioral issues. Teen pregnancy. Adolescent girls raised in homes without a biological father are 2 to 3 times more likely to become pregnant as a teenager. That's from Howard Berken with Fever, a study done by them. Incarceration. Boys who grow up without a father in the home are 3 times more likely to go to jail in their lifetime. High school graduation and college graduation, students from fathers' homes are twice as likely to drop out of high school and less likely to graduate college compared to two-parent homes. Future family relationships. Children who grow up without a father often have more turbulent or unsatisfying romantic and family relationships later in life, and that comes from Harper and McLennan in 2004. Okay, so like we actually have empirical data that shows that when the father steps out from his post, like I said before, when I was in the Army, they said, I will guard everything. Our first general order, I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post only when properly relieved. And we have so many men who are leaving their post just because they didn't feel like it, just because
Leaving
it's hard.
leaving their posts, and that's exactly right. And we see the evidence of this all throughout the year, particularly on two special days, Mother's Day and Father's Day. Can you imagine? Just think about it. Every single Mother's Day, every single restaurant packed out. You can't get a reservation for nothing. Churches are filled, cards, candy, gifts. It's almost like Christmas in the middle of the year. But when it comes to Father's Day, When it comes to Father's Day, it's a completely different reality. And it speaks to the fact that the wife, the mother, has had more influence and impact on those children's lives than the father, the husband. It grieves me because even on Father's Day, you have men and women, adult men and women, who are thanking their mothers for being the father that they did not have. And it really speaks to this issue that we're talking about. But men were designed to be the foundation. Now, I want you to think about a foundation. Anytime a building is resurrected, is created, is constructed, there has to be a foundation in place that undergirds that structure. Now, think about a house. Think about a church. Think about a skyscraper. 3 completely different types of structures, different size, different capacities, and they require different types of foundation. You can't have the same foundation for all structures. So some foundations have to be bigger, stronger, wider, taller, thicker, right? More profound than others, but nonetheless, they all require a foundation. Now, I was talking to a builder, and the builder told me that the foundation is often determined by how many levels are in that building, how many rooms are in that building. They even do calculations to determine the weight of the furniture in those buildings. They even calculate the max capacity of people who can be in a structure, calculate that weight. When all of this weight comes together, they have to build the foundation in such a way that it can withstand the weight or the pressure that it's holding up. If it cannot withstand that weight, then it's going to create it's going to create cracks in the foundation, which ultimately impact how stable that structure actually is. And when men are not in their rightful place, when they haven't properly developed to become the men that they were designed to be, they become a faulty foundation that cannot withhold the foundation of the family.
Yep. I mean, that's absolutely true. What we're looking at is this new world is driving me nuts. I'm just going to get to it. Like, we think that we can create create new ideas and new structures that avoid nature. And what I'm telling you right now is whenever we build something, we're humans. We like to innovate. We like to create new things. The things that we do in accordance with understanding the laws of nature are the things that last. When we do it in accordance with the laws of nature. If you look at the structure of a pyramid, the reason why the pyramid lasts is because of how it was built. The reason why some of those Roman buildings are still standing is because of how it was built. When you look at what we do now, these houses after 20, 30, 40 years are ready to get torn down. And that's because we have a new structure using cheaper materials, using cheaper ideas and cheaper labor to get things done. Whereas we're not building things to last like they used to be. So when I say till death do us part, I mean it. It's not a suggestion. It's a science. And when we actually have that idea and we decide to burn our ships, forsaking all others, what ends up happening is we create structures that build legacy and can support the weight of legacy. The first man that steps out of the home breaks and creates a generational curse. Creates a generational curse. And we have to be mindful of this, man, because we're all caught up in our emotions and our feelings, and feelings are like weather. They change moment to moment. I don't know how many men have walked away that I deal with on a daily basis, have walked away thinking they wanted the other woman, the grass was greener, all this stuff. They walk away and only to live lives of regret at 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, wanting to go back. I listen to it. I deal with it on a daily basis. Men, I have to tell you right now, if you think the grass is greener on the other side, because you're looking at the neighbor's fence and you see that grass is greener, you need to water your lawn.
Yes. But what's happening is many men walk away, but it exposes their inadequacy.
That's it.
It exposes their insecurities and their perceived inabilities to properly maintain that home because they haven't developed the skills. There's so many men that we come into contact with within Couples Academy. When we get alone in our private settings, one of the first things that they'll admit to is the fact that they don't even know what it means to be a man. Either they had no example or a bad example, and they just don't know what it means to be a man. So if I don't know what being a man is, how in the world could I know what it takes to be a husband to this woman, a father to these kids? So many men are in a search for their own significance. And because he has not figured it out, it has forced the woman to step up and to play a role that she was never designed to play. And so now you have women wearing multiple hats. They're the mother and the father. They're the husband and the wife. They're feminine, but forced to be masculine as well. They become the all in all for that household and for those children, because so many males' development has been arrested and they haven't stepped into manhood. And until you become who you were designed to be, you will miss the mark every single time. You can have all of the desire in the world. You can have the best of intentions, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Absolutely. So here's something I want you to think about. If I want to be an engineer and build great things, I have to go to school. Very few men going to make it out there and become an engineer just through their own efforts. If I want to be a doctor and be able to perform surgeries and be able to do the greatest things in the world in that field, then I have to go to school. If I want to become a psychologist, a marriage counselor, a great chef, then you have to study excellence from other people who've blazed that path. Here's the problem, men. No one sat down and gave you any classes on manhood. There was a time in the world when we had rites of passage, things that we had to do to prove ourselves to the tribe, to the group, that would show ourselves worthy to take on a wife, a bride. And now it's kind of like, well, you like her, she's cute, and you have good emotional bond. Let's get married. I'm telling you, when you take that responsibility in, even if you've already taken on that responsibility and you haven't gone through the classes on what it means to be responsible for a legacy, then you need to get in one.
Wow. Listen, guys, we're talking about how men need to be the foundation of their homes. So we're doing a comparison. We're juxtaposing the foundation of a home, right? The actual structure of that foundation to a home, to the role of a man inside that household with that family. Now, to give you some examples of what this foundation looks like. Number one, a foundation provides support and stability. That is the role of a husband. Now, that's going to show up and look like a few different things. Number one, he's got to provide financial support and means for the household. One of the most important emotional needs of women is financial support. It's an emotional need. And let me tell you something. I was once on the struggle bus. In the beginning of our marriage, we were broke, busted, and disgusted, didn't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. We would argue from month to month about which bill wasn't going to get paid. I remember in the middle of an argument about what bill we weren't going to pay because we didn't have enough money, the lights went out. The next month, the water turned off. The next month, there was an eviction notice on the door. We were constantly in a place of just emotional distress because of a lack of finances, because at that time, I was trying to figure out how to be for others what I struggled to be for myself. And this is one of the things that men oftentimes haven't stepped into, which has caused a foundational problem. And all of a sudden, that house starts to wobble a bit. It's just like pillars in a house, right? It's just like you got pillars in the house and you also have studs in the house. When those studs lean a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, that whole house comes tumbling down. And when you are not financially providing support for that household, it can be disastrous.
It absolutely is disastrous. And here's the thing, fellas. We get it that men struggle, but the men who struggle, I sit there and ask them one question. Oh man, the world's stacked against me. I'm a man, the world, it's a woman's world now. I hear all this stupid stuff. And the reason why I say it's absolutely ridiculous and stupid is because the first question I ask them is, what was the last book you read on money? What was the last mentor you picked up that taught you how money works that was already successful? What was the last thing that you took, read, learned, and implemented in your life? And they literally tell me, oh, well, that's not it. You know, it's the government. It's this, it's that. I'm telling you, governments come, governments go. You could get born, dropped in, or planted anywhere in this world. You're still going to have the same struggle. You've got to figure it out. You've got to create value in yourself that is so strong that other people see it and want to invest in you, where they get a benefit from being around you. And so few of us have taken the time to become valuable men. The idea here is that we become undeniable and irreplaceable. If you become undeniable and irreplaceable, what you're going to find is she ain't leaving. Guess what? She's not leaving. The kids are going to respect you. When you walk in the job, when you're undeniable and irreplaceable, meaning you know more, you learn more, you do more, not just show up every day and work hard, but you can actually provide more because you put this to work instead of the football game and the video games. Read books. You learned. You found mentors. You become more valuable than those mediocre whatevers out there. And so, like, at the end of the day, undeniable and irreplaceable will literally change your life. And it takes work. And you should be working, not resting.
Facts. Facts. To be undeniable in the area of your finances is critically important because it creates a sense of security for the home. The other area of stability and support would be emotional strength. When you are undeniable, and I need you to break down the emotional security of a man, Jeff.
The emotional security of a man. This is the ability for a man to be one. This is not that we don't feel. It's not that we don't feel anger. We don't feel sadness. We don't feel depression. We are human. We are going to go through all those motions. But how we handle that, what actually comes out of our bodies. See, emotions are chemical reactions in us. And they're like weather. And what do you do when you actually have control over the weather in your house? You set a thermostat. This is who I'm going to be. We call this stoicism in the Western world. Might lean more towards Buddhism in the Eastern world. But stoicism is a philosophy that says no matter what I feel, it's not about, see, people think stoicism is about actually shutting down your emotions. Man, I'm not telling you to shut down your emotions. You need to experience a full range of emotions. But what you need to do is temper them, control them, and learn to show them. And what we have is scientific structure that shows that an absent father is a direct relationship to the inability for children to regulate their emotions. Because my mom, her primary function in life is nurture, right? Just like men have testosterone and women have testosterone. Men have estrogen and women have estrogen. We just have them in different amounts. And what ends up happening is while there's nature and nurture in both of us, the nature part that says, and nature's vicious, nature can be vicious, it is the part that tempers us. And a man in the home, since his natural tendency is more towards that testosterone, more towards that nature, we end up giving and providing context for emotional control. But if we don't have it ourselves, it affects our legacy.
And it impacts your ability to be for that household what you need to be, which causes deficits in the lives of those who depend upon you. We're talking about the foundation. And as the foundation, you are required to provide support and stability. So we talked about financial support. We talked about emotional strength. But the next thing we want to talk about as it relates to being a part of this first aspect of a foundation is being reliable and consistent. Now, of all the things that many men will admit to, they admit to being inconsistent. One of the biggest complaints that we hear from wives is the inconsistency in their husband to show up the right way, because we think that once we did something once, we deserve an award. We deserve a plaque. We deserve a cookie. We want to be celebrated because we did something. But doing something one time isn't consistent. Doing something one time will not wield results. Imagine if you went to the gym one time in the year, no matter how hard you worked out, no matter how many hours you spend in that gym, you're not going to have any type of result because you only did it one time. But your consistency in going to the gym every single day, your consistency in loving your spouse, your consistency in showing up for those kids, when you're sowing seeds constantly, it will reap a harvest in return. And that harvest will be a blessing to everyone in that household. And so, Jeff, what I have found is that many men struggle to be consistent, reliable, and dependable.
And that comes from the fact that they're lying to themselves. See, everybody wants a participation trophy. We're lying to ourselves. We start out lying to ourselves. We say we're going to go to the gym, but then we don't go. We say we're going to go on a diet, but then we don't go. We say we're going to read a book, but we don't read that book. We say we're going to show up on time, and we don't show up on time. We walk around daily in our minds in lies, and there's no integrity. When there's no integrity, there's no consistency. When you say you're not consistent, I want you to know that you have an integrity problem. And here's what integrity actually is in a simple way. I have a much longer explanation for our guys, but here it is in a simple way. Integrity is when my thoughts and my words align with my actions. Now, here's what's happening, fellas. You're thinking one thing, saying another thing, and doing something completely different, and that's what makes you inconsistent. When you learn to live in truth, walk in truth, be in truth, regardless of the consequences, and we're not talking about brutal truths. You don't have to be brutal to tell the truth. But we're talking about living in truth. When I see there's a problem, I acknowledge there's a problem, I speak that there's a problem, and I start working to solve the problem. To see the problem and to say there's a problem and not work to solve it is a lack of integrity.
Wow. Listen, there's so much we can say. There's so much we can do. We are just scratching the surface. Listen, if you heard anything here today, if you enjoyed anything in this conversation, you need to tune in tomorrow while we talk about part 2 of how men are the foundations of their home. Now, if you are a real man, I want you to watch this with your wife. And I want her to evaluate how you've been showing up in the marriage. Can you handle that conversation? Can you deal with that truth? Just this morning, my wife and I engaged in the conversation, and she began to share things with me in terms of areas that I need to step up as the foundation of our home. And some of these conversations are challenging conversations, but your ability to be open to the truth will lead to personal transformation and the restoration of that family. So you've been watching The Foundry Show. Tune in tomorrow for another great episode. Take care, guys.